So today we're doing a special episode with Victor Jones. Now, this one is a great one because he's been a friend, a mentor, and we've known each other for years. So I've seen him as his business has developed, as he's gotten into so many different businesses and opportunities. But one of the things that I'm excited about is he's running for mayor in High Point. And we're going to talk a little bit about his business career. We're going to talk about, why mayor, and we'll just talk about how those two worlds complement each other. So, welcome to the show, Vic. How are you?
Good to see you, brother. Been a long time, but I was looking forward to catching up with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I guess, to give people a little bit of context, what was your first business that you started?
So, this was back when I was 13 years old. I went to a buy-sell video game store and I asked them if they were hiring and didn't know about child labor laws. And they were like, you can't get a job legally, So they said there's a guy that's shutting down his booth next door. Those racetracks where you pull the trigger and the car goes, Imagine that, but the cars are this big. It's a slot car racetrack. They're real popular in the 50s, but they had one of these as a display for a hobby shop. And so I worked a deal with them that I would run the slot car racetrack and charge people, I think it was $1. They'd race the cars for 5 minutes, whatever. And the guy, I gave them percentage of revenues. I gave the flea market percentage of revenues. I then started using that money and bought arcade machines and stuff like that to put in my booth, a huge booth. I bought an air hockey table with a quarter slot. It's 7th grade, right? And I didn't know that I was making real money, right? Because it wasn't like what you heard your parents are making, but 7th grade making $200 a weekend, that's not bad 2023 money. But you're talking about 1990 something money, to have $200 cash in my pocket every weekend. But so I did that for a couple years. The flea market itself closed down, so I closed down the booth, sold off a lot of the stuff there, bought lawnmower, backpack leaf blower, and a weed eater, just some basic stuff. I didn't have a license because I was too young to drive, so I hired my older friend that could drive the van, and then I was like, well, I don't want to be cutting grass. I'm too good at getting the business, so I would just be the guy getting the accounts. I didn't know anything about payroll taxes or FICA or workers' comp or, I didn't know what I was doing. But man, we started picking up accounts, and like every day of the week, we were out there cutting grass, doing yard maintenance, and my buddies would come to work. I'd pay them a little bit of something, but heck, I was probably making $30,000 a year in high school. On the sides in the afternoons. But still not knowing what I was doing though. It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot.
Mm-hmm. Now, I guess what really started you down that journey, because that's not the typical story you hear from most people as a kid or a teenager.
Well, my dad had a little bit of a stroke, and when he got laid off as a corporate job and never really recovered career-wise, and so he was always there. He just wasn't able to really hold down a job, and we just kind of knew that his career wasn't going to come back. And so Mom was a school teacher. I got an older brother, and I wanted to be able to get video games. This first thing, I love video games. I wanted to be able to go get Nintendo games, and so I was trying to find a way to get some of that income. But I just learned at an early age, like, hey, if I go out there and do something and provide a service or some value to other people, that I can get paid for it. And the cut that I get to keep is a whole lot better than if I'm doing it as a job working for somebody else. Like, this is my money, So it just, and I always wondered, like, what if I did more? What if I built a bigger business? Could I have more? And I didn't know anything different, right? When you're young, you don't know anything about limitations. We're taught limitations, right? We're taught by our peers, by negative people that will say, be careful. I had a friend that lost money in that, or a friend that didn't make it in that, all that negative input. I just put blinders on, and I just figured I'd try something. And I failed at some stuff, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, but I've had some failures out there that I wouldn't consider successes, but I've learned from them. And I've learned that failure doesn't hurt that bad. You can recover from anything in life. Nothing that's facing you today is going to ruin your life if you don't let it.
Mm-hmm. So, going back to, like I said, 13, you're running this amazing entertainment center in the flea market.
Right.
I mean, now, fast forward a few years, like let's fast forward, let's say to the end of high school.
Right.
Did you have a new business by that point?
Yes, I did the landscaping thing until I graduated high school. And then I was at a Christian summer camp as a camp counselor, and they asked me if you want to stick around one more extra week. They got this group that's renting out the camp, and you want to hang out and work that week. I was like, sure, whatever. And it was funny it was the Amway guys, right? And everybody that I worked with at the camp had all these negative things to say. Like, they would say, well, yeah, they're going to tell you that, if you do this thing in 2 to 5 years, you could be making $250,000 a year. And I'm like, what? Hold on. So what? And they're trying to talk me into it or out of it. And I'm like, who are these guys? Like, I don't know anybody makes $250,000 a year. I don't definitely know anybody's going to teach me how to make $250 a year. Like, I was in before they even pulled into the driveway. And I'm like, who do I got to kill? I don't, So, and the guys pulled up, and they were really solid guys. I met them. It was all just men. There's obviously men and women in the business, but this was a men's group that came, and I got to meet their kids. Were all polite and respectful, and I got the guys' information and asked them if I could get into this thing, whatever it was. I didn't know what it was. I just wanted in, and all they wanted to do was talk to my parents. Figured my parents would be good at it because they have the connections and degrees, and they were like, it's $180 to get started. They didn't know I was a baller at 13, right? So I'm like, you want cash? You want, And so I drove from Raleigh to Greensboro, went to a meeting, and I said, I'm ready to get started. And they're like, well, I got started. And I didn't do much with it for 4 years. I tried. I tried talking to people, and it never took off for me. I just didn't have the self-image, I don't think. I was talking to people, the lack of confidence portrayed in my conversations. I was a Marine, so even with the military background, it just didn't portray. But finally hit my first win with my first person signed up and got in business with me. And from that point, 6 weeks later, I had 18 people in my business, and that grew to over 60. And then I was a 4-month platinum in that business, and did well for several years. I think that I just got a little burned out. I think it took a lot of effort to sustain that, and there was a lot of glass walls type situations with that. I just wanted to take those experiences and apply them in different ventures, which I have. I've built and sold over 20 companies now, and I do it not for the money. It's just the love of the game. Mm-hmm. I love the game of business. I don't even care if it's my business. I love talking to other people about their business and helping them become better at their business. I love, my passion is mentorship. This year will be the 149th person that I've mentored to a 6-figure income.
Wow, that is amazing. So, before we jump into talking a little bit more about the mentorship, can you give us a little bit of an idea of, like I said, of these 20 companies that you built and sold, and like I said, some of them you're still running. Can you give us a little bit of a flavor of what types of businesses those were?
So, you remember when I bought my first limo, right? I still got the picture of me and you in Greenville, South Carolina, sitting in the back with our shades on, looking like ballers, So I've always been a fan of limos. I just think they're cool. There's something cool about them. And I, did the prom thing and rented a couple when I was in college here and there. And I was like, that'd be kind of cool. And even to use it for a business purpose, for my other businesses, I could take clients or people that work for me and do a reward dinner. We all hang out. We rode down to South Carolina in it. I can use it for other things. And so I was like, if I buy one and I rent it out here and there, I can at least make a few dollars on it and maybe cover my costs. I thought it was going to be like a break even. Well, I bought it, and the dang thing kept getting rented out. I could never use it. And so I kept, I can't do anything less than 100. So I'm out there marketing and cards and networking. So I was like, all right, I guess I'm going to buy another one. So I bought another one. So that could be for me to use while the other one's rented out. Well, then that one kept getting rented out all the time. I was like, what in the world? So I got another, and then it got into party buses, and then Hummers, and then Maseratis, and Bentleys, and Rolls Royces, and Jaguar limos, and just kept adding to the fleet. And then I'd get rid of some stuff that I didn't like, and you ebb and flow as you grow in a business. But that's grown to, it might be the largest limo company in North Carolina. It's up there in the top 3 for sure. So that company has done well. My first big boy money was when I got my insurance license in 2003. That was before the limos. Limos was 2010. I got my insurance license when I got back from Iraq. I was like, I'm a Marine, I'm a war veteran. Do I need to really go back to bouncing at clubs and waiting tables and stuff? I just felt like I'm better than that. You know, I'm called to do more than that. And so I sat down with a guy that said, he showed me how he goes through a presentation at a husband and wife's house or a person's home, whatever. And I said, I could do that. You know, I think I could do that. So I went and got my insurance license. Most people take a month. I read the whole thing in 2 days because I was hungry, you know. So I just churned through it, got my license, went to my first appointment in '04. Didn't know what I was doing. I just winged it. They asked me questions I didn't know the answer to. I said, I don't know. I'm fairly new, but if that's important, you know, let me look that up and I'll see if I can get some information to you about it. Is that a deal breaker or is that just something you want me to get? You know, I said, no, we still want the policy, but if you could give me the answer. Okay, cool. I come home, called the guy that brought me in the business and, you know, told him what happened. He goes, you just made $1,000. I said, 1,000 in one night? You know, I didn't get dirty. I didn't break a sweat. You know, like, this is real. This is what we're supposed to do, is use our brains to create revenue, not knocking labor jobs. I've had plenty of them, but for the first time in my life, I was able to do something besides just using my hands and feet to make money. I've grown that agency over 200 agents across the country. I've never met most of them. Most of it came from my social media stuff about selling over the phone. I created a YouTube video in 2010, I think, that was for about 8 years the #1 video in the world on selling life insurance over the phone. Wow. I checked it. I was in Bangkok in Thailand, and I typed in Google selling life insurance over the phone, #1, my face right there. It's not so much more now because so many people have gotten into that space, but I pioneered that back in 2010. My agency was #1 in the nation for electronic applications for several years with United of Omaha. So I proved that could work. I had the day spa for a few years. The funny thing was, it made money, but I wasn't trying to make money. I bought the day spa so that I could have a free place to park the limos because the city of High Point was getting on me for having 3 cars in my driveway. So it started making money. I was like, crap, now I got to build this too. And so eventually I found a better place to park the limos. I sold that company for a profit. Got into trucking. I had, at one point in time, 15 trucks on the road. We were making great money. But I think it stressed me out so much, that industry and the maintenance and the drivers and just the world that brought me into. I didn't like that world. So I sold that company, got all the assets out of there and everything, moved that money into something else. Just this year I've started a plumbing company. Okay. I partnered with a guy, been in the business for 30 years. We got 2 employees now. 8 months into the business, we're rolling pretty well. I think that has the potential to maybe outgrow even the limo company. It's very much more scalable, depending on if we can find the right talent. I've got some Airbnbs that I'm running, doing short-term rentals. I've got ATM machines out there. I've got commercial properties. As we were talking about beforehand, though, I think if you have excess revenues, you could either increase your lifestyle by going out to eat more, buying fancy cars, whatever, and that's what dumb people do. Then they end up stressed, trying to keep up with the Joneses. Fortunately, I'm a Jones already, so that's got to keep up with me. But for me, if there's an extra $500 or extra $1,000, I'm not tempted with that money. There's no temptation. I just go, hey, leave it there, leave it where it needs to be, and then I look for the next investment opportunities, because we don't have 401ks in the self-employed world, right? You can buy other investment tools, which I don't do. But, even my brother asked me, because he's a corporate guy, he goes, you don't have a 401k? I said, no, man, why would I do that? That's what y'all do. It's the best you can do because you don't have any time to actually do real investments. Yeah. And he goes, well, I've got, this is years ago, it's probably a bit more than that, but he said, I had $400,000 in my 401k, right now. I said, you realize, if you annuitize that, that's like $20 grand a year after taxes. Mm-hmm. I got one party bus that I paid $16,000 for. Mm-hmm. That makes me $80,000 a year. So he's got a value of 400, a return of 20. I've got a value of 16, a return of 80. Yeah. Who's the smart one, right? Mm-hmm. And so you have to, as an entrepreneur, you have to be comfortable not fitting in, and understanding that 9 out of 10 people are not going to understand the world that we walk in and the way that we look at investments, the way we look at opportunities. We have to stay optimistic and positive with a good expectation of the outcome.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned earlier about, your self-image wasn't where it needed to be for, one of the earlier businesses that you were building. Like, how did you get to the point of, like I said, of building that self-image so you can be comfortable saying, like, hey, I may not fit in with the average person, but I'm, self-aware enough to go through this process so that I could actually have the type of results that I want to have. So how did you build that self-image?
Well, self-image is almost like anything else. It's like exercising. You got to do the workout before you get the muscles, right? They come later with repetition and time. It also is a lag time between income and self-image. Just because you get to $100,000 a year income doesn't mean you have $100,000 a year self-image, right? You're probably going to have the $60,000 a year self-image for the first year or two that you have 100K, before it hits you that, hey, I'm in that group now, and so I think you just have to stay at it, but it does eventually catch up to you. Now, it did help that I had a mentor that was pouring wisdom and positivity into me of what he saw in me, what he felt like I could become one day, but it's still not there yet. It took me years to believe I could be a Marine after I was a Marine. And that's why I think so many of us in Parris Island, we're grown men crying at graduation because I didn't think I could be this. I've been dreaming of being a Marine my whole life, and here I am holding the Eagle Globe. I'm part of that legacy for the rest of my life of this nation. But again, I think self-image takes a little while to catch up to where you are. You're going to be here, but your self-image is going to be here. In a year from now, your self-image will be here, but you're here. And so it takes a while for you to realize that you're at the level that you are and to appreciate it, because you and I were both so driven that we're very hard on ourselves. I know that about our personality types. It's like, my girlfriend even tells me, you should be so proud of that. I'm like, yeah, but I got to get this done. And I'm like, 9 out of 10 people would trade places with us in a heartbeat if they could, but they're not here. I think we do have to, as brothers, as men, we have to kind of remind each other, dude, you're doing great, man. I'm proud of you. I love seeing what you've done over the years and everything. Like, I'm genuinely proud to know you and watch you. But I think we both need to take a time sometimes and let that self-image sit in and go, you know what? It may not be where I want to be, but I'm doing everything I can, and I'm moving in the right direction. I've got God on my side, and I give him the glory, and I can be proud of where I am right now. I'm still going to keep going. I'm still going to keep hustling, but I got to stop and be thankful for where I am right now.
That's a really good point. And so even as you were talking through like all the different businesses, one of the things that I was consistently thinking about is the number of other people that you've impacted along the way.
Yeah.
Like you talked about, the number of people that you've been able to mentor to help them, open their eyes for opportunity. And so tell me a little bit more about kind of what that experience was like for you. Like as you were learning then to have the opportunity to help other people, continue moving forward in their own journey.
So I guess I was just so excited, not about the income, but about the opportunity to have access to someone that's successful, right? None of my friends' dads, I had friends' dads who were rich attorneys growing up, doctors. None of them ever took the time to talk to me like a son and say, hey, what are you going to do with your life? Do you want to be a doctor? Do you want to be an attorney? No, they didn't care. They just bought their kids a BMW and they were happy. But I could spend the night at my friend Nathan's house, but the rich dad never said anything to me. And then I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and I'm like, man, it'd be so cool if I meet somebody that would believe in me, teach me what my own parents can't teach me, wealth. And so when I met my mentor, and I realized he actually would answer the phone, and I could go to his house and he would talk to me about my life and not just money, right? About life and life decisions, and dating and whatever it took. He was interested in me as a person. And I was so excited about that and how much it impacted me as a young man that I was like, I got to do that for other people. Yeah. Like I got to make there's a young Vic out there that doesn't know how amazing of a person they are and how much they can mean to this world. And I got to find them, and I got to tell them God's message, right? And I met you, and I met Ray and Nick, and all the different people over the years. Troy Avery out in Vegas, multimillionaire now. You know, like, we all had the same thing. I think we were all looking for that big brother, that something, the rich dad version of what Robert Kiyosaki taught. Somebody that could pour some life into us and reconfirm what we already knew, that God created us in His image and that we're capable of more. So when I had access to that mentor, I think my motivation was just pure excitement. I want other people to know what I'm feeling right now.
Mm-hmm. Now, I guess as you translate from, building the businesses, helping other people, and at what point did, becoming a public official come into that picture? Because, you seem like you're very busy, with all the businesses.
Yeah.
So, where did space to become a public official come in?
So, funny thing was, I met with Gary for lunch, my mentor, and I said, I'm frustrated. And he said, why? I said, well, I've got all this free time, and I really did. I was like, I answer a few phone calls here and there, but I've got people in place that do all the day-to-day operations. And I said, so on a given day, I'm going to the gym. I'd go catch a matinee movie or something. I felt like me and the retirees at the movie theater. Right? So I was blessed, but something about Matthew 25, the parable of the talents. What do you do with what God gives you? I started reading through it, and I'm like, what if He's giving me this lifestyle and freedom so that I could go be a blessing? And if I don't do that blessing with it, He might take it away. He might go, this could be for folly. This could ruin you. Or if you apply it. So I had lunch with Gary and I said, what do I do? Should I go in the ministry with you? He goes, well, you love that. You'd enjoy it, but that's not really your passion. You're more of a business guy. That's always been your love. And I said, I know. I said, maybe I'll run for office. And he goes, man, with your integrity, he said, you would hate it. He's like, you would rip somebody's head off. And I said, I know, but I was like, he goes, just put money behind the good people and let them run for office. And I said, but Gary, at some point, somebody's got to be that good person. Somebody's got to be the guy that runs for office that can't be bought, that's doing it for the right reasons. His heart is in it for the right reasons. And he goes, go for it, man. He said, I know you'll do good at it if you do it. You'll be one of the good ones. And so I told the CEO of our Chamber of Commerce here and the CEO of the Visit High Point, I was thinking about it as a joke. And they were like, are you serious? I was like, nah, man, that's for old people. I'm not old enough yet. They said, if you would run, if we could get somebody with your business brain to actually serve on council and make those decisions for the city, we'll back you. You won't have to worry about raising money. We'll make sure that's all covered. You can just focus on the campaign. I said, okay. We said, well, just go to city council, go check out a couple meetings, right? So I was like, okay. And so I go there, Terrell, and I'm sitting in the audience watching these, important people up there in that dais. Again, back to self-image. That ain't me. I can't be that important, right? So I started talking to them shyly, sheepishly, coming up, hey, would it be cool if I could get coffee with you sometime? And they were like, yeah, sure. I was like, wow. They said yes. I didn't think that, right? And I started getting lunches with all these people, and I figured, man, I know way more than this person does. I'm doing better than this person does. I've got more background in business than this person does. They talk about zoning case. I'm like, I'm a licensed realtor. I've got my degree in finance, insurance, and real estate from UNCG. I was like, I know more about the subject matter than this guy that's voting on it. And I'm like, man, I could do okay at this. I said, what the heck? I'll throw my hat in there. So I went to council meetings for a full year so that, one, I could date the job, right? Can my businesses survive without me? I'll know after a year. If I go to every meeting for a year and didn't miss one, then I know that I can do it I can be on council and business would survive. And I figured out how to email somebody and do whatever to cover that hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it would take to be at a council meeting. And I ran. I had a 19-year incumbent from the same political party, so it's unwinnable. You can't win that. And I won by 14%.
Wow.
What I had heard was that people had said, some people get complacent and they felt like that person wasn't responding as much as they used to, whatever. And I knocked on every street in Ward 5. 5,000 houses I knocked on in about a 90-day period of time. Rain, shine, didn't matter, hot, sweaty, cold. People would see me out there 7 days a week because I just want to know, if you'll give me this chance, I want to see what I can do. I bet you I can do better than the last guy. I can bet you I can do better than anybody because I give everything 100%. And so I ran. They bet on me. They gave me a chance. And when it came time for re-election, I won by even bigger margin, 18%, which you don't know if you're doing a good job as elected official in one term. You just can't. You don't know until your second election because that's like a report card. Hey, you're doing a job. I want to keep you at it. So I think that if you're going to move up, you're going to do this stuff, you really don't know if people are happy with you until you get reelected. So it was very encouraging in my second term to get an 18% win over a very formidable opponent.
That's an interesting point because, in business, a lot of times when you set different milestones or metrics to know that you're headed in the right direction.
Right.
But like you said, as an elected official, you don't get that report card until the next election.
Right.
And you may have failed or you may pass.
Sure.
You'll find out that day. So it's just like, how did you kind of manage, I guess you say your confidence level during that point? Because like I said, the entire first term, you don't know whether it's good or bad. You don't really get a true assessment on yourself. So how did you not allow yourself to just fall into this, moment of despair of just doubting yourself the entire time?
I think if I know I'm giving something everything I got and you still aren't happy, that's more about you than me. I gave you everything I got. One of my best life lessons, I was doing the physical fitness test in the Marine Corps years ago. And I got done, and this staff sergeant came up from behind me. He goes, "Hey, Jones, I want to talk to you." I thought I was in trouble. He's like, "It's a 3-mile run, right?" And he goes, "Hey, Jones, I want to tell you something I noticed about you. I was about to be promoted to corporal, I think it was that weekend." And he says, "I want you to know I ran behind you the entire 3 miles." He said, "You never slowed down. You never sped up. You kept the same pace the entire time." He said, "I paced myself by you." And he goes, "You see all those Marines that are coming across the finish line?" I said, "Yeah." Because you see how they're all sprinting at the end? He goes, "That means they got all that energy left over from not giving it 100% the full 3 miles. They're only sprinting because all of us staff sergeants and officers are watching and they want to impress us." He goes, "You're going to be a great leader because you always give everything consistency, whether anybody's looking or not." And I feel like that's what I've seen with elected officials. They sprint right there at the end when it comes time to campaign season. They show up, they answer phone calls, they're at meetings on time or whatever. But as soon as that election's over, you can't find them. You can't get a hold of them. They won the title, they're late to meetings, they don't show up. A lot of them just want the title and the position, but they don't do it out of passion for serving people. And everyone in my district, I'm telling you, different party, they know Vic will answer the phone, we'll call him back. They know that I'll show up to your doorstep, take a picture of your garbage toter that needs to be replaced. I mean, whatever it is, I treat everybody as if it's just the most important thing that I've got on my day that day, because it is. And people resonate with that. I think what America's craving right now, and from the business world, from the political world, is just some people that are authentic. No airs about them, not trying to impress everybody, but just are regular, everyday people that care about other people.
Mm-hmm. So I want to talk a little bit more about, High Point specifically. For viewers, like a lot of our viewers are in different parts of North Carolina or different parts of the U.S. So when you think about, how would you describe High Point as a city?
So we're the 9th largest city in North Carolina, about 116,000 people. We're known as the furniture capital of the world. High Point has, for over 100 years, had the furniture market. It's the biggest economic event that happens in the state of North Carolina twice a year. It's responsible for close to $7 billion of economic impact.
Wow. So
we've got a whole section of town with beautiful buildings that are only used twice a year. I mean, it's great. I mean, you come during market and you're like, man, what is this, LA or something? And this is High Point. It's market. We have an amazing university that was not amazing 20 years ago. We've had a new president's come in and just really revamped it with a lot of investment. and it's growing, and in new schools, and PA school, and all these different things that are pushing out new youth into great professional fields. We've got Old Dominion, Thomas Buses. We've got a lot of good industries that are here as well. But this city is just unique. Not too many cities revolve around a trade or an industry, a trade show like High Point does. So it takes a little getting used to. But it's a nice city. It's a safe city. There's a lot of amenities coming online. We just built a brand new baseball stadium a few years ago. It's a multi-purpose stadium. Next year, we're actually having our first season of professional soccer. And so we've been working on that since 2017 when I first ran. There are people who say that it's a new thing. It's not new. It was in the original plans when we built the stadium to recruit soccer. You can look at my campaign videos in 2017. I'm talking about soccer. So it's always been the plan, but it's now finally coming to fruition. I think we're going to get a lot more industries coming here as long as we can maintain the trajectory that we're on, which is a safe city with stable taxes. Everybody wants you to go lower, but there's only so low you can go and maintain city services and pave the streets and everything. I think we're at a fairly healthy rate now that if we could sustain that, I think we'll be a very attractive on an economic platform.
Mm-hmm. And I guess speaking of the economics, so when you think about the role of the elected officials, you think about private business, what does that collaboration look like in a healthy High Point?
Yeah. Well, elected officials are the checks and balances for government. I believe that's our whole purpose, right? If there were no elected officials, then governments would do whatever they wanted to, take as long as they want to, and pay themselves whatever they want to. You get an opportunity in this country just about every year to vote for something, whether it's president or senator or congressman or city council or judges, run the gamut. That is an opportunity that if somebody's doing a bad job, get them out of there. If somebody's doing a great job, keep them in there. And when it comes to government services and how they collaborate with businesses, a lot of times they're too slow, or the costs are too high, or something that negatively impacts that business. So we as elected officials get to hear from the business community, and I'm part of it, obviously, but we get to hear what's going on and say, hey, what can we do with our local government, changing ordinances, changing pricing structures, fee structures, all that stuff, so that it's fair. We're not trying to do anything that's unfair, but so we can make it as fair and streamline the process for somebody to open a business in our city and thrive and be successful. It doesn't matter if they open it if it doesn't make it, right? But how can we support them? And I've tried my best. I've had situations where a developer was going to lose $8 million because they couldn't get through with one department at the city, and they wouldn't even meet with them. And I was down there working on my Harley, and he called me, and I said, it's about 10:30 in the morning. I said, all right, give me till lunch. I'll have it fixed. And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah, that's what I do. And so I shot off an email and a phone call, and didn't chew anybody out really harshly, but I was pretty firm. Like, you need to meet with this guy. We need to fix this. They were going to have to lay off 30 people to get through the winter because the city wouldn't let them finish this project. And by 2:30, I get a text back from the CFO, says, hey, we got our meeting set up. Tomorrow we're going to get everything. Saved all 30 jobs, saved them $8 million, and allowed that contract to move forward. That wouldn't have happened if I hadn't gotten involved. I shouldn't have had to do that, right? In a perfect world, the city would just do their job and projects move along and everything, but it takes elected officials to force our governmental entities to do what is in the best interest of the people.
I think that's a very great way to look at it, because I don't think many people think about it that way as far as like the role that the government or the elected officials play in helping that, collaborative system actually work.
Yeah.
Now, I guess for yourself, when you think about, High Point and the potential of High Point, like you mentioned about like with the soccer team, and mention how that was something you started, talking about, years ago. Like, kind of, can you give us a little bit more light on how, as an elected official, you guys played a role in that coming to life?
Well, we have to coordinate with a lot of entities. So, like in our case, we have a nonprofit that owns the stadium, and then we have the team that operates out of that stadium, and there's all these people that have to kind of negotiate behind the scenes, and then we have to step in sometimes. The deal to get our soccer team a yay or nay was on a particular day, and one of the board of directors is a friend of mine for the baseball side, called me. I was at Harris Teeter parking lot up here. I remember exactly what it was like it was yesterday. I said, I really need you to agree to this. I know it's going to be tough, but there's some terms that certain parties didn't like about certain parts of the deal. And I said, just trust me on this. I need you to agree to this. The soccer's going to be a good thing for the city. I need your support on this. He goes to the meeting, signs a deal, whatever. We have to nudge people, and just let them know that we can't only want what's best for this area or for this population or whatever. Like, sometimes people see only what's in their best interest or what's best for them or their neighborhood or whatever. We get the benefit and sometimes the struggle of the 10,000-foot overview. And so it's a lot of times I have to talk to people that in just like that situation, say, I know from your perspective this may be challenging, but let me assure you, I'm at a higher level of what I'm seeing, and I can tell you that I agree with this, and I think it's going to be best for our city. And if they trust me, then usually we can move forward and get that accomplished. So there's a lot of the collaborating that we have to do because we see things on a larger scale than the individual business or the individual entities.
Now, I guess with that one, how excited is the city about having a soccer team come into High Point?
Oh, it's exciting. I mean, you got to think soccer's cool to us, but it's the world to international community. I mean, it's their football. They love it. So I think we're going to see a huge turnout. I think it means a lot to our international community that we recruited that particular sport to play in our multi-purpose stadium. I've spoken to hundreds of international friends of mine that are like, man, this is going to be cool. They're big soccer fans. I like going to games to hang out, to see my friends. I may spend a couple minutes watching the actual game, but I just love seeing people and getting out of the house when you work from home. That's my people time. But yeah, I think generally our entire city is really excited about the successful recruiting of the soccer team and the 6 years that it took for us to do this.
I think that's a very good point, because in Charlotte, when we got the soccer team there, I mean, when you ask people that they have no idea about the rules of soccer, they're just happy to have the team.
Yeah.
The games are just phenomenal. I mean, they're a lot of fun to go to. And I think also just here in America, soccer is becoming more exciting, especially since Lionel Messi moved to Miami. Best soccer player in the world, now plays in the U.S., to where it's just brought more excitement. So I'm interested to see how, like I said, the city just opens their arms and welcomes it. Now, he's talked about the new baseball stadium. So do you guys have a minor league team here, or?
It's an Atlantic League. It's about 40% of our players played in the majors. So a lot of times if they get injured, they'll come play in this league for a little while till they get back up to speed, then go back into the majors. So we lose players to the majors. So, but it's a professional level of baseball, and so it's been a lot of fun. I mean, we were at a game last night. It's sports and concerts and activities like that. When the world right now, the big word is inclusion. How can we increase inclusivity? And that's how you do it, by bringing people together. Give them a reason to hang out. Give them a reason to come from this side of town, that side of town. Whether they look like you or look like me, doesn't matter. We're getting together, we get to meet, we get to hang out, we get to talk and exchange business cards, right? And then the friendships are built. And so you to create an inclusive community, you have to have a reason for people to gather. And we didn't have that in High Point, and now we do. We're having events down there all the time. We have a new downtown. Mm-hmm. And it's so cool to see. I mean, you will bring tears to your eyes if you're to see the Christmas events with the tree lighting and all these people there with their kids and everything, and you're like, man, that wouldn't be here if I didn't run for office. Wow. We fought for that, and I had to take a stance because as a conservative, I had people that were not too happy with me because I took a risk. When you're talking about using special obligations bond to fund a stadium, some people didn't see the benefit of it. I could tell them as a business guy, I'm like, I know we're going to get a return, even on an economic standpoint. We built this. We're hoping for $100 million. We got over $200 million of economic development around that stadium because we went and took out that loan to finance it. So it's been a good thing in the long run. So we've done a lot of told you so's in the last couple of years.
So, those are exciting things that you've done, as a council member. Now, when you look into, your vision for mayor, what does that start to look like? What do you envision, hey, Victor Jones, mayor of High Point, what could that look like?
I would say safer and more prosperous. High Point, at a point, there's a reason we have a Bentley dealership. There's a lot of wealth. It used to be the wealthiest per capita city in America. There was a mass exodus of industries and jobs when the furniture and textile industries went overseas. And so you have a lot of areas that are just dormant, that haven't seen prosperity in decades. We're starting to see that back. And I think that I lived here, and I had a house here, and I had a business here, businesses. But I really didn't want to get involved with the city as far as elected official politics until I really started hearing rumors that High Point was wanting to do something about it, right? Rather than just agree to the status quo, leave things as they are, I started hearing rumors that, hey, they're wanting to revitalize this city. And I'm like, I could probably help with that, right? I have unique gifts and skills and abilities in the business world that if I were on that council, I could probably make sure that it's successful, more so than the other council members, And so as we've done it over the last 6 years, and where I went out to lunch today at the new food hall that Kate was talking about, I ate there. And that was a new thing that we brought about because of our new Catalyst project, because of our revitalization. And I'm seeing where we are now, and I know that we're close. I know we're close to having High Point back to its prosperity that it was decades ago. It's going to be another 4 years. It's going to be another 10 years possibly. And if we're this close, I don't want to lose the momentum. We could get off track right now and go backwards 10 years in 1 year. Or I can keep the momentum going. And so since I've been on council for the last 2 terms, we've got some good people running for re-election. We've got some great candidates that are running for their first time. I believe as the mayor, I can continue the momentum and take us to where we might not otherwise get to. I think we're going to see more jobs. We're going to see neighborhoods cleaned up and fixed up. I think we're going to see our transportation access be improved. I think we're going to see more inclusion. We're going to see all the things that we've been working for 6 years. Our current mayor's done. He said, I've done 10 years on council, but somebody's got to step in there with the same thought process of growth that our current mayor's had. And I'm the best candidate for that out of the options that we have here in High Point. And even if there were no other candidates, that would be my role. I'm Mr. Vision, as you've known me for 20 some years. I can see something, I can describe it to people, and they're going, I don't know what he's talking about. 2 years later, there it is. Man, he was talking about that years ago. When you talk about the statue of David, right? One of the most iconic things ever made in the world. At some point, it was a piece of stone. Michelangelo had to know what the statue looked like before he started chipping away at it so that he could create that sculpture. Well, that's a visionary. What I see for High Point is years from now, what it will eventually be. We just got to get the right people in place to make sure that we continue on that trajectory and we restore it to its glory days.
It's funny that you mentioned the Michelangelo statue. I heard this story, and you probably heard it before once, where this little kid walks by and sees him working on the statue, and he sees him doing it over time, and by the time he ends up, really designing out this amazing statue, the kid walks up and says, how did you know that statue was in there?
Right, yeah. A visionary has what nobody else can understand. It's a rare gift. I don't have it for art, but I have it in business and in big scale projects. Somebody can describe it to me, and they don't know the steps to get it there. Mm-hmm. But as soon as they cast me their vision of what they're trying to do, in 15 minutes, I can show them a clear-cut path on how they can get this huge thing accomplished. And they look back and go, how did you put all that together in 15 minutes? I don't know. It's just a gift. I don't know. I've done it for ministries. I've done it for nonprofits. I've done it for businesses. And I've done them mostly over a napkin, over a cup of coffee. And I have a ministry down in Florida, a good friend of mine, saved their whole ministry. You've heard of it. I mean, they're on TV and they're on a big name ministry, but they weren't successful and thriving until we had a cup of coffee in the airport. And I just did my thing. He looks up, his eyes are big, he's like, he says, will that work? I said, yeah. He says, how long would it take you? I said, it would take me about 90 days, might take you 180, but it's doable. And then, yeah, they did it. They listened to what I said. Way to change how they brought in the revenues, bring in more revenue here. Just different little marketing ideas that I had. And so if I could give those gifts to other business owners and entrepreneurs that are making money, why not for free? I mean, we don't get paid much. We get basically peanuts for serving on the city council. But I look at it basically for free. But for free, I can go and give my city these same talents and abilities for 4 years, and let's see what I can do. Let's see. Give me a good council. Let's get some good level heads in there with some good wisdom about them, and I bet you we can create some great changes for the city.
Awesome. I love it. Well, we're going to have some more conversation later where I really want to dive into the mentorship and just kind of the way that plays and, how or if you have a vision for, mentorship playing a bigger role in High Point as well. Mm-hmm. But definitely want to say thank you for coming on. Great having you on. Great to have the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.